You're standing at the edge of a cave, watching the fire burn low, and even though you know every stone and shadow of this place, you can't make yourself step into the dark beyond the entrance. Something in your chest tightens. You haven't seen a predator in weeks. You just can't shake the feeling that something is watching, and no amount of telling yourself you're safe seems to loosen the knot in your stomach. Separated by oceans and thousands of years, cultures in Papua New Guinea, ancient Scandinavia, and pre-Columbian Mexico all told strikingly similar stories about darkness, snakes, and the dead returning. Some of these fears appear in over 90% of studied societies, despite zero contact between them, no shared language, and no possible way to have copied the idea from one another. So why did people who never met, never traded, and never shared a single word end up terrified of the exact same things? The answer says less about culture than about something buried far deeper in the brain, something that was written in long before any of these civilizations existed. Fear of snakes shows up almost universally, and researchers have traced why. Primatologist Lynn Isbell proposed that snake detection shaped primate vision itself, arguing that early mammals who spotted camouflage predators before being bitten passed on sharper eyesight and faster threat recognition to their offspring. Psychologist Arne Omen's lab tested this directly, showing that both humans and monkeys spot snake images among neutral objects faster than almost anything else, even when they've never encountered a real snake in their lives. This isn't cultural training passed down through stories. It's wiring laid down before humans existed as a species, inherited the same way eye color or reflexes are inherited. This is why a coiled garden hose can still make your pulse jump for half a second, long after your conscious brain catches up and tells you it's harmless. Fear of the dark follows the same pattern, and anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer groups found it everywhere they looked, from the Kalahari to the Arctic Circle. Researcher Richard Koss has argued that nighttime vulnerability shaped human behavior for hundreds of thousands of years, since darkness stripped away the one advantage humans had over faster, stronger predators: their eyesight. Groups that stayed close to fire and to each other after sunset simply survived more often than those who wandered off alone. Over enough generations, that caution stopped being a choice and became instinct instead, something felt rather than reasoned through. This is why so many people still sleep better with a nightlight on, or feel an inexplicable unease walking to their car in an empty parking lot after dark, even in neighborhoods with essentially zero recorded danger. Fear of the dead and of ghosts appears in nearly every recorded culture, from ancient Mesopotamia to indigenous Australian traditions to medieval Europe. Anthropologist Pascal Boyer has studied why these beliefs are so consistent across such different societies, suggesting that the human mind is built to detect agency and intention everywhere, even where none exists. A dead body breaks every expectation the brain has about a person, present in appearance but completely absent in animation. And that contradiction seems to trigger deep unease across virtually every population ever studied. This is why an empty house at night can feel occupied for no logical reason, and why most people, even devoted skeptics, feel a small chill walking past a cemetery alone after dark. Fear of strangers and outsiders shows up in the archaeological and ethnographic record with remarkable consistency across continents. Anthropologist Napoleon Chagnon documented how small-scale societies treated unfamiliar groups with immediate wariness, a pattern later linked by researchers to genuine survival stakes rather than simple xenophobia. An unknown group could mean new trade and new allies, or it could mean violence and resource competition, and there was rarely time to find out which before deciding how to react. This built a fast, largely unconscious system for sorting people into familiar and threat within seconds of first contact. This is why first impressions still form in a fraction of a second today, often before a single word has even been spoken. Fear of falling and of heights is documented from Aboriginal Australian communities to Arctic Inuit populations, and researchers have found it appears even in infants who have never once fallen from a height. Psychologists Eleanor Gibson and Richard Walk's classic visual cliff experiments showed that crawling babies instinctively refuse to cross a surface that only appears to drop away beneath them, suggesting the fear precedes personal experience entirely, rather than being learned from a bad fall. For a species that spent millions of years in trees and on cliffs before ground-level life became the norm, a single bad fall could end everything in an instant. This is why your stomach still drops on a glass observation deck, even while your rational mind insists, correctly, that the floor beneath you is solid. Fear of loud, sudden sounds is perhaps the most immediate of all these ancient responses, and it appears within hours of birth, long before any culture has had the chance to teach a child anything. Researchers studying infant startle reflexes have found the same pattern in newborns across radically different societies, a full-body flinch triggered by noise alone. In the ancestral environment, a sudden crack or roar almost always meant danger closing in fast, a predator, a falling branch, a rival group. There was no evolutionary benefit to pausing and analyzing the sound first. This is why a car backfiring or a door slamming can still send a jolt through your entire body, decades removed from any world where that reaction actually kept you alive. For nearly all of human history, these fears were simply correct. They kept people alive in a world with real predators, real darkness, and real threats hiding behind unfamiliar faces and unfamiliar sounds. Then, over the last several thousand years, and especially the last 2 centuries, the world changed faster than instinct ever could keep up with. Cities replaced forests. Electric light replaced fire. Strangers became coworkers, neighbors, and faces on a screen instead of unknown figures on a horizon. The dangers that shaped these fears mostly disappeared within a handful of generations, but the wiring never got the memo. That's the twist researchers keep circling back to. Humans didn't evolve out of fear, they just outran the reasons for it. The nervous system built to survive ancient nights is the same one flinching at a dark hallway or a stranger's gaze today. We didn't lose our fears when we built houses and streetlights and cities that never truly go dark. We just lost the dangers that made them make sense, and somehow, we kept carrying the alarm anyway.